Songs in the Night, July 30th. Who is a God like unto thee, that retaineth not his anger forever, because he delighteth in mercy? Micah 7:18. The heathen gods are all vengeful. The God of the Bible alone lays claim to being a God of love, whose mercy endureth forever, as one of the Psalms repeats again and again. Alas, how terribly our God of wisdom, justice, love, and power has been misrepresented to the world and to the church as a God delighting in the eternal torture of the vast majority of his creatures. For if such were his provision for them, and he knew the end from the beginning, it would surely prove that he delighted in and intended their torture. But when our eyes open to a proper interpretation of God's word, his character becomes glorious before our eyes and commands our love and our devotion. As the apostle declares, it is the divine love which constrains us to be faithful and obedient. Reprint 4892.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're looking at something today that, well, it really challenges some common ideas about, divine nature. How do we even understand a higher power? This source we're diving into today takes a pretty strong stance, contrasting divine mercy with vengeance, and it all hinges on this one fascinating verse from Micah.
Yeah, Micah 7:18. And what's really interesting here, I think, is how directly this source confronts what many people believe about divine character. It offers a very distinct view. Some might even say radical, especially on what it means for a divine being to truly, quote, delight in mercy.
Right. So our mission today is to really understand this perspective, right? Even if it's challenging. And as always, we're just exploring the source's view here, laying it out impartially for you.
Exactly. We're just looking at what it says.
So the source kicks things off by drawing this really sharp line in the sand. On one side, it talks about what it calls the heathen gods, and it paints them as, well, pretty universally vengeful, always demanding sacrifice, retribution, that sort of thing.
Right. That's the setup. But then it brings in the God of the Bible, and it makes this bold claim that this deity, uniquely, is about unreserved love.
It keeps coming back to that phrase, whose mercy endureth forever, from the Psalms.
Yeah, you see that again and again. So that contrast is key. It's not just describing things, it's setting up the whole argument, isn't it?
Precisely. The source seems almost troubled by how this God described with attributes like wisdom, justice, love, power, has been, in its view, so misrepresented.
Misrepresented how, exactly?
Well, it argues that the idea of this divine being finding pleasure in, and I'm quoting here, the eternal torture of the vast majority of his creatures, it sees that as a fundamental distortion, a deep misunderstanding of its core nature.
And it really hammers that point home. It makes this logical argument, or tries to, saying that if a divine being knew from the start who would end up suffering eternally,
foreknowledge,
and still created the system for that suffering, then doesn't that inherently imply a delight in it? That's a strong claim, linking foreknowledge directly to delight in the outcome. It is a strong claim. It definitely makes you stop and think about the implications of holding those two ideas together, perfect foreknowledge and eternal suffering. But then, here's the pivot. The source argues that if we could just see what it calls a proper interpretation of God's word, then this divine character suddenly appears glorious.
Glorious. Not just understandable, but glorious.
Right, and it's not just like an intellectual thing. The source claims this realization is so powerful, so profound, that it naturally inspires love and devotion.
Okay, but what about justice? That's the question many would ask, right? If it's all about mercy, delighting in mercy, where does justice fit in, especially for, actual wrongdoing?
That's a fair question. And the source does address it, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. It doesn't really throw justice out, but it seems to redefine it through this overwhelming lens of mercy. The implication is that true divine justice is ultimately about restoration, about purpose, not just endless punishment.
Okay, interesting. And then it connects this understanding of God's character directly to us, to human action. It brings up that idea you often hear it linked to the Apostle Paul about divine love being the real motivator. The source says it is this divine love which constrains us to be faithful and obedient.
Exactly. Constrains us, not forces us, but compels us from within.
So faithfulness isn't about avoiding punishment anymore. According to this source, grasping this pure mercy actually changes why we'd be faithful. That's quite a shift.
It's a fundamental shift. That's the core idea.
Yeah.
Your motivation flips. It's not external anymore. Fear of hell, hope of reward, it becomes
Ah.
internal. A response to love. The argument is that truly getting this divine mercy transforms why you'd even want to be devoted. You're moved by the beauty of that love, not the threat of suffering. Obedience becomes ideally a joyful response, not some kind of reluctant duty.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean? We've walked through this source's reinterpretation, moving away from its picture of vengeful heathen gods towards this God of the Bible, who it insists delighteth in mercy, a God whose compassion is presented as truly enduring forever. The source really stresses that seeing God this way, through what it calls a proper interpretation, reveals this magnificent character. It shifts the whole picture from, supposed delight in eternal torture to this divine love being the thing that actually constrains us to be faithful.
Yeah, it's a powerful reframing. And it leaves us, and you, the listener, with a pretty significant question to chew on. If a divine being truly delights in mercy, as this source argues, how does that specific understanding change the way you think about faithfulness, about obedience? What does that look like in your own perspective?
It's definitely something profound to consider.